if you're going to straighten out people's thinking and give them assurance of their salvation, you do have to put certain promises into their head. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of our friends that are preachers sometimes do not say it crisply, precisely, or even accurately when they talk about what salvation is. For example, let's hit this right outright. There was a lady that you talked about in the book that listened to a preacher on the air. And this preacher said, yes, you've got to believe in Christ, but also made it look like, sound like, that they had to look at their works. And if there wasn't a confirmation by their works, then they weren't really saved. That, I think, is a recipe for disaster, because you'd have to ask how many of our works, how much of our works have to arrive before I would have security or knowledge or assurance that I had been accepted. Then the emphasis switched now to my works instead of what Christ did. Tell us about that lady and what you told her.
Well, the situation is this. I was sitting in my office in church, and the phone rang, and it was a woman who was actually in a nursing home. And she said, you know, we get together in a room and we listen to a certain preacher every morning. And she said, I knew that I was a Christian because, again, she had genuinely believed. And we have to keep that before our people, John, because we've not yet talked about a true faith and a false faith. But she had every evidence that she had a true faith. But she said, according to this preacher, I'm lost. I said, why? She said, oh, because he says that true Christians never really sin. If they do it, it's only for a little while, and then they always bounce back real quickly. She says, oh, I have failed my Lord so many times. I know that I am a great sinner and I failed God. And then she says, I always thought that the blood of Christ is enough, but according to him it isn't. I said to her, of course the blood of Christ is enough. And at the end of this program, by the way, we're going to give an illustration of how the blood of Christ is enough. But I said, the blood of Christ is enough. And she said, what can I do with my heart? And this was so cute. Here's this elderly woman, and she said, I cannot take steel wool to my heart and scrub it. What shall I do? And I said to her, if your trust is in Jesus Christ and his shed blood on the cross, that is enough. She said, really? Is that enough? And I said, yes, that is enough. She said, as soon as I'm going to hang up the telephone, I'm going to tell all of the other women in the room that the blood of Christ is enough. And John, we want to say categorically that the blood of Christ is enough. Now that presupposes a lot of things. It presupposes that you have a true faith in the blood of Christ and what Jesus did on the cross. It presupposes indeed that you have savingly believed and that, you know, there are evidences in your life that you're a true Christian, because that's a part of it that we'll talk about. But up front, what we want to say is that assurance ultimately comes by seeing that what Jesus did for us is enough. It is finished, paid in full, and accepting that for ourselves.